The first night he entered the short corridor, the silence felt so heavy it pressed against his ribs harder than the restraints on his wrists. He had been in prisons before, lockdown blocks, riot zones, even temporary solitary, but nothing matched the atmosphere of Pelican Bay's SHU. The air felt stale, metallic, as if the walls themselves had been holding their breath for decades. Every step of the escort team echoed like a warning: whatever life he knew on the main line was over. If stories like this fascinate you, hit subscribe, because this one only gets darker. His name was Daniel Reyes. On paper, he was just another inmate transferred from a Southern California yard after a brief burst of violence officials labeled gang-motivated. But inside the institution, he knew the truth: they weren't moving him because he'd done something. They were moving him because someone had decided he knew something. He'd heard the rumors for years. A place within Pelican Bay where inmates were buried alive without ever leaving the earth. A wing so controlled, so insulated, that even other officers whispered about it like a superstition. The short corridor. The escort paused outside a steel door with a faded red stencil. The guard didn't look at him when he said, "This is where people go when they can't be reached any other way." Then the door opened, cold air, harsh lights, and a hallway so quiet it felt like time didn't move there. Daniel's cell had the same layout as the others: concrete slab for a bed, a stainless steel toilet, and a slot in the door where meals slid through like a reminder that human contact was optional. 22 hours alone. Maybe 23. Maybe 24. Depending on whether staff decided he earned an hour of empty yard recreation. The official reason for the move was stamped across his file in bold black letters: validated gang associate. The evidence? A tattoo he'd gotten when he was 16, a photo with two cousins at a barbecue, and a drawing found in his property that a correctional officer claimed contained coded symbols. None of it matched who he was now, but inside Pelican Bay, innocence was a luxury no one cared about. Almost immediately, the pressure began. A counselor stopped by his door and asked casual questions that were anything but casual. Who he knew. What he'd heard. Whether he understood the options available to someone in his situation. Everyone in the SHU knew what that meant: debriefing, snitching, giving up names, or staying in this concrete box for the rest of his sentence, or his life. Daniel refused. Not out of loyalty to a gang. He wasn't part of any organized structure, but because he'd seen what happened to men who debriefed. Word spread. Lists circulated. Even in solitary confinement, judgment traveled faster than mail. Days turned into weeks. Weeks blurred into something that didn't feel like time at all. The fluorescent lights hummed through the night. Meals arrived without voices. His world shrank to 6 steps from wall to wall. Then came the knocking. Late at night, slow and deliberate. 3 taps on the adjoining wall. Then silence. The next night, the same pattern. 3 taps. A pause. Another 3. At first, Daniel ignored it. But the knocking kept returning, patient and intentional, like someone trying to send a message through the concrete. Finally, on the 5th night, a faint voice came through the vent. Calm. Steady. Almost rehearsed. "You're not here by accident," the voice whispered. "They're building something on this tier. And you're part of it now." Daniel froze, his heart thudding in the silence. "What do you mean?" he whispered back. The voice paused for a long moment before saying something that made the hair on his arms rise. "They're not isolating us. They're organizing us." Before Daniel could ask anything else, the voice cut off. Footsteps echoed down the tier. A guard's flashlight beam slipped across the cell door like a blade of white fire. Daniel stepped back into the darkness, pulse racing, staring at the concrete as the meaning sank in. Organizing them, for what? Daniel barely slept after hearing the whisper through the vent. In the SHU, random voices didn't exist. If someone spoke, they had a purpose. If someone reached out, they wanted something. And if someone warned you, you needed to pay attention. By morning, his routine felt different. Same cold tray. Same fluorescent hum. But now the silence around him sounded intentional, like the whole tier was waiting for something to break. Midday, a small scrap of paper slid under his door. No name. No marks. Just one line in tight handwriting: "Watch what staff do after count." He should have destroyed it immediately. Paper was contraband. Getting caught with it meant punishment. But something about the note felt like the second half of the whisper he'd heard the night before: unfinished, dangerous, and impossible to ignore. That night, after count cleared, he watched. The guards didn't move like they normally did. Instead of walking together, they staggered their rounds. They lingered at certain doors. Some spoke through food slots too quietly to hear. Others tapped on door frames like they were signaling, not checking. It looked less like supervision and more like choreography. Then the whisper returned through the vent, calm, steady, as if the speaker had been waiting for Daniel to notice the pattern. "Now you see why they brought you here." Daniel stayed close to the wall. "Who are you?" "A man they tried to bury," the voice said. "Same as you." "You said they're organizing us. What does that mean?" "It means the short corridor isn't just isolation. It's a funnel. They validate us with old tattoos, family photos, anything they can twist, then they claim we're the threat they created." Daniel felt the truth tighten in his chest. His tattoo was meaningless now. His cousins were civilians. None of it mattered. They filled this tier because they needed proof their gang control program worked, the voice continued. So they made the proof. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed at the far end of the hall. A door opened, too late for routine movement. Daniel listened. A guard muttered, "Warden wants him pulled tonight." Another replied, "He's not ready. They haven't finished the file review." Doesn't matter. They want him to start talking. Debriefing. Someone on the block was about to be taken for an interview, the kind designed to break a man fast. You weren't asked to give information, you were pushed until you'd say anything to get out of that room. Then came a muffled voice. Pleading. Desperate. "Don't take me down there. I didn't do anything. Please." Shackles clicked. Radios crackled. The sound of dragging feet echoed down the corridor until it faded completely. The hallway fell still. The whisper came back, quieter than before. "That's how it starts. You refuse to cooperate, and they isolate you deeper. You cooperate, and you sign your own death warrant." Daniel swallowed hard. "So what do they want from me?" "The same thing they want from all of us," the voice said. "Silence. Or surrender." Daniel pressed his forehead to the wall, breathing slow, trying to make sense of the impossible choice. Then the voice added something that made his pulse spike. "But there's a third option." "What option?" Daniel whispered. "The one they fear most." A pause. A breath. Men in the short corridor talking to each other and refusing to disappear. The next morning, something on the tier felt different. Not louder, Pelican Bay's SHU never got loud, but heavier, like the tension had settled into the concrete itself. Daniel stood by the door slot, listening, waiting for the whisper through the vent. Nothing came. For the first time since arriving, the silence felt dangerous. Hours passed before the voice finally returned, thinner than before, like the speaker had been conserving strength. "They took Torres last night," the voice said. "The one they dragged off after count." Daniel's pulse kicked. Did he debrief? No. He refused everything. And now he's gone. Moved off the tier, no notice, no hearing. Just gone. This was the truth of the short corridor. You didn't need to break a rule. You didn't need to commit violence. You just had to exist in a place where a label, one you couldn't erase, argue, or appeal, determined whether you ever saw another yard again. Daniel leaned closer. Why are you telling me all this? Because I watched them bury men in here for years, the voice said. Men who tried to fight alone. Men who thought if they stayed quiet, they'd be forgotten less quickly. A long breath. But a few months ago, something changed. Daniel waited. Inmates on this corridor started refusing to play the game. They stopped debriefing. Stopped signing forms. Stopped validating the system with their fear. He wasn't talking about violence. He wasn't talking about gangs. He was talking about resistance. They reached out to other SHUs, the voice continued. Sent messages through lawyers. Family. Mail that slipped past screening. The idea spread: if solitary was meant to break them, then unity was the only counterweight. Daniel felt the meaning slide into place. This wasn't organizing to attack. It was organizing to be seen. The hunger strikes, Daniel whispered. Yes, the voice said. The spark was lit right here. In these cells. By men they tried to bury in the dark. Daniel had heard about the strikes, vaguely, secondhand. But he'd never imagined how they started, not with leaders shouting orders, but with men whispering through vents, tapping codes through walls, risking punishment just to stay human. They think they control every inch of this place, the voice said. But they can't control what happens when the corridor stops cooperating. Daniel felt something shift inside him. Not hope, that was too soft for a place like this, but clarity. A realization that the silence wasn't natural. It was constructed. Manufactured. Maintained. And it could be broken. A sudden alarm blared down the hallway, brief, sharp, and then gone. Daniel backed from the door, expecting a search or an extraction. But nothing followed. Just an announcement on the intercom: all movement suspended. Staff to remain on post. The voice returned one last time. That's because they found our kite. A message. A plan. Something passed from cell to cell. They know we're talking, the voice said. And they're about to lock this place down tighter than ever. Daniel gripped the edge of the bed, adrenaline rising. What do we do now? He asked. The voice didn't hesitate. We keep talking. We refuse to vanish. Everything they built here depends on us suffering alone. Break that, and you break the corridor. The footsteps of officers grew louder at the far end, coming closer, fast. Will I hear from you again? Daniel whispered. A pause. The faintest hint of resolve. You will. And when the time comes, you'll know which choice keeps you alive. The steps stopped just outside his door. Radios crackled. Keys turned. Daniel inhaled slowly, bracing himself, not for punishment, but for whatever came next. Because now he understood the truth: the short corridor wasn't just a place of silence. It was a place waiting to be heard. If you think this story was intense, the next one will leave you speechless. Subscribe for more true crime stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat.